Hi, everyone here and around the world, and those who stayed up the night of May 15th to 16th to see the total lunar eclipse, followed by a so-called public congressional hearing about UFO UAPs on May 17th. I want to start tonight with beautiful, eerie lunar eclipse photos that my friend and colleague editor Brad Stoddard took Monday to Tuesday night this week. And yesterday morning was the first so-called public congressional hearing about UFO UAPs since half a century ago on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. I say so-called public hearing because there was so little shared with the public that has been kept in the dark by the War Office and Department of Defense since the early 1940s. I'm certain the Pentagon power brokers running the hearing yesterday morning during its first 90 minutes did not realize what an irony it was to hear Andre Carson, Democrat from Indiana and the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee Subcommittee on Counterterrorism, Counterintelligence, and Counterproliferation, say these words in his opening introduction, quote, "Transparency is desperately needed for the American public about UFO UAPs," close quote. That was followed by opening statements from Scott Bray on the left, who is Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, and on the right, Ronald Moultrie, Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence and Security. Each read their written statements with the speed of someone wanting to get off stage as fast as possible. And only 90 minutes later, the hearing was adjourned in order to move to a closed-door session at noon Eastern Daylight Time, where allegedly some real facts and truths about other intelligences interacting with Earth would be discussed in the secrecy that has dominated this government's policies about UFOs and ETs since World War II. The New York Times this morning reported the short public hearing on page 19A with the headline, quote, "Congress publicly digs into UFO reports for first time in decades," close quote, with one of Scott Bray's statements that, quote, "Officials vow the U.S. has no material from any alien landings," close quote. Well, that is definitely not true. For example, you all know about Art Bell and me on Dreamland and Coast to Coast AM radio in April of 1996, when we received from a U.S. Army sergeant 2 mailed shipments, first some pure aluminum pieces, followed later by a strange silver and black layered metal in layers that turned to be alternating layers of pure bismuth with an alloy of magnesium and zinc. Those shipments included typed letters allegedly quoting from the Army sergeant's grandfather, who had also been in the U.S. Army in the late 1940s and was assigned to security duty around a wedge-shaped UFO that came down in the Roswell region. The grandfather in the diary said he pulled off some material he saw glowing underneath the craft. Art Bell asked me to investigate. So I began calling metallurgists and scientists to study the metal pieces and kept reporting on the radio what I learned about the alleged material from an alien craft. Scientists I worked with over the years included superconductor expert Stephen Chu, astronomer Jacques Vallée, physicist Hal Puthoff, to the Stars Academy's Louis Elizondo and Steve Justice. TTSA ended up purchasing a piece of the bismuth magnesium zinc layered metal from me to study by the U.S. Army. The challenge is to test with high terahertz frequencies to see if the layered metal from a craft that was identified as extraterrestrial to the security team, will it turn into a lifting body under the influence of a very specific terahertz frequency? So why, at this point in May 2022, are we not finally getting real truths from the Pentagon about other intelligences and their very advanced technologies that our government has been exposed to and denying since World War II? This congressional hearing evolved from the 180-day countdown last June 2021 to a report requested by Congress about unidentified aerial phenomena. That report had a 9-page preliminary assessment from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence focused on 144 UFO/UAP incidents going back to 2004. Only one of those reports could be explained. But this week, Scott Bray said the number of reported UAP cases has grown to, quote, 400 frequent and continuing, close quote, with many in military training areas and airspaces that remain unidentified. But no one yesterday morning talked about one of the most dramatic examples of UFO/UAP abilities to interfere with and control one of our most sensitive weapons, the Minutemen nuclear missiles. Congressman Jim Hines, serving Connecticut's 4th District, pointed out that, quote, the stigma to reporting UFO/UAPs is itself a national security threat, close quote. And then Congressman Hines asked one of the most important questions in the whole rushed 90-minute public hearing. What about those 10 Minuteman nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base that were taken offline one at a time under the influence of a red glowing UFO back in March of 1967? Shockingly, Deputy Director of National Intelligence William Bray said, quote, I have heard stories, but I have not seen the official data on that, close quote. Well, that important data was back in March 16, 1967 at Malmstrom Air Force Base in Great Falls, Montana. The launch control officer underground at the time was U.S. Air Force First Lieutenant Robert Salas, who wrote a book with author James Klotz about UFO interactions with Minuteman missiles entitled Fated Giant, the 1967 missile UFO incidents released in 2005. One of the surprises that I had talking with Robert Salas over the years was learning that not only did his March 24, 1967 Oscar flight have UFOs shutting down 10 of its nuclear missiles, one every second, but Bob also learned that only 1 week before, on March 16, 1967, the Echo flight at Malmstrom also had 10 of its missiles go down in seconds. But no one was allowed to talk about it. So Bob's own Oscar flight did not even know about Echo flight's UFO intrusion until after March 24, 1967, when the exact same thing happened to them. 10 missiles shut down, one every second. Here is one of the actual classified telexes about the March 16, 1967 Malmstrom Echo flight having 10 of their nuclear missiles shut down by a UFO. Quote, Secret March 17, 1967 telex from SAC, Strategic Air Command, to Hill Air Force Base in Utah about UFO interference with Minuteman nuclear missiles at Malmstrom Air Force Base, Great Falls, Montana. Subject: loss of strategic alert, Echo Flight, Malmstrom Air Force Base. All 10 missiles in Echo Flight at Malmstrom lost strat alert within 10 seconds of each other. This incident occurred at 08:45 on 16 March 1967. As of this date, March 17th, all missiles have been returned to strat alert with no apparent difficulty. Investigation as to the cause of the incident is being conducted by Malmstrom. 2 fits have been run through 2 missiles thus far. No conclusions have been drawn. There are indications that both computers in both GNCs were upset momentarily. Cause of the upset is not known at this time. The fact that no apparent reason for the loss of 10 missiles can be readily identified is cause for grave concern to this headquarters. We must have in-depth analysis to determine cause and corrective action, and we must know as quickly as possible what the impact is to the fleet, if any. We have concurred in a Boeing request to send 2 engineers, Mr. R.E. Reichert and Mr. W.M. Dutton, to Malmstrom to collect first-hand knowledge of the problem for possible assistance in later analysis, close quote. And here is what retired U.S. Air Force Captain Robert Salas told me last year in 2021 about the UFO interferences with Echo and Oscar Flight's Minuteman missiles on March 16th and 24th, 1967.
I was on duty as the commander of the site. This is a launch control facility, 60 feet underground. We're locked into a concrete and steel capsule. There's just 2 of us. My commander, who was Fred Mywald, we were both first lieutenants at the time. He was taking a rest break, and I get a phone call from the topside guard, and he's telling me they were seeing strange lights in the sky. These lights were flying over the facility, going very fast, then stopping on a dime, reversing course, making 90-degree turns. No engine noise. They were obviously under control. He said, "They're not aircraft, sir." And I said, "What do you mean? Are they like UFOs?" And I chuckled because we had reports in the local newspaper at Great Falls Tribune of lights in the sky reported by people in the Great Falls area. He said he couldn't explain it, but he just felt he had to report it. It was a serious report. And then about 5 minutes later, he called back. And this time he was extremely frightened, extremely agitated. He was screaming into the phone. He had all the guards out with their weapons looking at this red-orange pulsating light, relatively large light hovering just above the front gate, and wanted me to tell him what to do. I think he was asking for permission to fire on this object. But by that time, I realized we were under some sort of attack. So I told him, make sure nothing enters the fenced area. He said one of his guards got injured, and then I went over to wake up my commander, who was taking a break, and all of a sudden, the missiles started shutting down. We look over at the status board, and all 10 missiles went down within seconds. All the lights turned from green to red.
Were these the shutdowns in which each missile was going off at a regular every second?
They went down quickly, 10, 15 seconds.
At that moment, did you think that was possible?
No, we were shocked. Our systems were very reliable. In the 3 years I was there on crew, we never lost more than 1 missile, and usually due to power surges or something like that. This was impossible. And even the Air Force, later on, when I was able to get documents about the Echo Flight incident, we were at the Oscar Flight. Echo Flight was another flight at Malmstrom that happened a week earlier.
And you did not know about it at the time that the 10 missiles went down so rapidly at Oscar Flight on March 24th?
No, not at all. And what happened was when we reported this to the command post back at Great Falls at the base, they told my commander that the same thing had happened at another facility a week earlier. That was the Echo flight shutdown, a very similar instance, except that Echo flight had maintenance people and guards, security guards, out at two of the sites.
Where the Minuteman missiles are, and how far apart would they have been between Oscar and Echo?
I would say about 30 to 40 miles away, but the UFOs were seen directly over the launch facilities in the Echo case. They lost all 10 of theirs within seconds. And of course, we have documentation stating that specifically. All 10 missiles went down within seconds, and the Air Force could not explain why. The indications we were getting as far as failure mode was guidance and control system failure, which meant that the inertial guidance system disconnected from its computers. UFOs sent signals to each of those missiles separately to upset what we call a stable platform for the inertial guidance system, and therefore the missiles couldn't be launched because they didn't know where to go.
Yes. And the idea that you would be working at the Oscar flight and 30 or 40 miles away, there would be the Echo flight and all of the other Minuteman missile sites around Malmstrom, just like at all of the other places where we have Minuteman missiles.
Right.
I don't understand how it would be possible that 10 would go down at Echo on March 16th and you all at Oscar would not be told.
Exactly. We had briefings before we went out on alert, very specific briefings as to what was going on in the field, and we had no clue. But when we went out on alert on the 24th of March, none of the crews were aware that what was going on were very serious investigations of the Echo flight shutdown.
You would think that was urgent information for everyone in all the U.S. Minuteman missile sites to know.
And in fact, when the final report was made of the Condon investigation, there was no mention of the Echo or Oscar flight shutdowns. The biggest hang-up, I think, is the admission that the government would have to make that, yes, indeed, they've been hiding these facts from the public for over 75 years and not confirming what's been obvious to many, many people, especially in the military.
This is not the only UFO interference with Minuteman nuclear missiles. And yet, in the so-called short public hearing yesterday morning, in answer to Congressman Hines, Scott Bray, Deputy Director of Naval Intelligence, said that this Malmstrom case, clearly described in that once highly classified telex that I shared with you, and this is what he said, that it was not included in the task force database of the new AIMSOG. That's how they pronounce the acronym AOIMSG, AIMSOG. It means Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group. If AIMSOG is serious about getting truth to the public about UFO UAPs, how could UFO interferences with Minuteman nuclear missiles not be at the top of their evidence list? Further, if AIMSOG is serious about reporting to the public what UFO UAPs are, then why didn't they open the hearing yesterday with this top secret executive correspondence, executive briefing on the subject of Project Aquarius, prepared by MJ12, a group of scientists, military, and businessmen appointed by President Harry Truman in 1947 after the July, New Mexico UFO crashes. This MJ12 classified document was anonymously sent to me as photographed pages, like the photographed Psalm 101 pages that I shared with you last week. Tonight, I want you to learn what is on pages 1 and 2 of this document about a highly classified Project Aquarius that has existed since the Eisenhower administration in 1953. Why wasn't this 69-year-old Project Aquarius presented to Congress and the public in yesterday's first alleged open congressional hearing since the close of Project Blue Book in December of 1969? And that was 53 years ago. This reads, page 1 of 9, Top Secret Project Aquarius, T.S. Orcon. The information contained in this document is classified top secret with Orcon. That means only the originator may release the information. Pro-word dance contains 16 volumes of documented information collected from the beginning of the United States investigation of unidentified flying objects known as UFOs and identified alien craft known as IACs. The project was originally established in 1953 by order of President Eisenhower under control of NSC, the National Security Council, and MJ12. In 1966, the project's name was changed from Project Gleam to Project Aquarius. The project was funded by CIA confidential funds, non-appropriated. The project was originally classified secret, but was upgraded to its present classification in December of 1969 after Project Blue Book was closed. The purpose of Project Aquarius was to collect all scientific, technological, medical, and intelligence information from UFO IAC sightings and contacts with alien life forms. This orderly file of collected information has been used to advance the United States space program. T.S. Orcon. The preceding and following brief is an historical account of the United States government's investigation of aerial phenomena, recovered alien aircraft, and contacts with extraterrestrial life forms. The word extraterrestrial is used throughout this document. Page 2 of 9. Top Secret Executive Briefing, T.S. Orcon. In June, misspelled without an E, 1947, a civilian pilot flying over the Cascade Mountains of Washington State observed 9 flying discs, later referred to as UFOs. The commander, Air Technical Intelligence Center of the then Army Air Force, became concerned and ordered an inquiry. This was the beginning of the United States' involvement with UFO investigations. In 1947, an aircraft of extraterrestrial origin crashed in the desert of New Mexico. The craft was recovered by the military. 4 alien non-Homo sapien bodies were recovered in the wreckage. The aliens were found to be creatures not related to human beings. See attachment 1. Clearly, there were photos attached. I only received photographs of pages with text. There were other pages with photographs of beings. In late 1949, another alien aircraft crashed in the United States and was recovered partially intact by the military. 1 alien of extraterrestrial origin survived the crash. The surviving alien was male and called itself EBA, a government acronym for Extraterrestrial Biological Entity. The alien was thoroughly interrogated by military intelligence personnel at a base in New Mexico and my source says it was definitely at Los Alamos, the lab that developed the atomic bomb. The aliens' language was translated by means of picture graphs. It was learned the alien came from a planet in the Zeta Reticuli star system, approximately 40 light years from Earth. Iba lived until June, again misspelled without an E, June 18th, 1952, when he died of an unexplained illness. During the time period Iba was alive, he provided valuable information regarding space technology, origins of the universe, and exobiological matters. Further data is contained in attachment 2, close quote. I will continue with more of this document next week in my May 25th, 2022 Earthfiles broadcast. But I wanted to close this segment with what I was told in 1983 when I was working on the home box office documentary entitled UFOs, the ET Factor, that was ultimately blocked by the government. Before all the government blocks in 1983, after signing my HBO contract, I received information that there was a retired U.S. Air Force captain who had been with an extraterrestrial biological entity referred to as EBA and housed at the Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico. The Air Force captain was able to understand and communicate the silent telepathic thought from the EBAN. Every day from approximately 1949 until June 18, 1952, when the EBAN died of unknown causes, the Air Force captain was filmed asking the EBAN's questions, and the answers the captain said out loud for the film camera. I was to be able to go and talk with him directly where he was dying of aggressive cancer from prostate. And then I received information that he was too ill and the trip was called off. But I was allowed to send him questions. And I think I sent 99 questions. And I received a lot of those questions back with some simple notes. And in this case, I was told that one of my questions about reincarnation, and he confirmed that he had asked the question to the EBAN at Los Alamos. Is reincarnation real? And that the EBAN answered telepathically. Reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of this universe. And now I would like to transition to all of you through one of the emails that I received since last week's program from an attorney in Massachusetts that I thought summed up so much of what happened in just the last couple of days in Washington so well, and that it seemed to represent so many of you. So this is coming from an attorney in Massachusetts after he watched what was available to the public in those 90 minutes in the congressional hearing that was the open part for the public. Quote, "For me, the most interesting part of your May 11th Earthfiles presentation was the public statements by members of Congress, especially Adam Schiff, and this is before the public hearing. This was in my program before, who is part of the congressional leadership. I suspect there may be a difference of opinion among government officials. Some may see extraterrestrials primarily as a potential military threat because of their superior technology, and they do not want to admit publicly that we lack the weapons to defend ourselves successfully. Others may be concerned about political fallout from public revelations of decades of government interaction with extraterrestrials, especially if some agreement was reached whereby the extraterrestrials could abduct humans or perform tests on American citizens without their consent, and you could add or do animal mutilations for needs that they have. Repeated government outright lies and dirty tricks used to keep the secret. One example being your sabotaged HBO TV special many years ago. Still, others, apparently including Adam Schiff and others quoted in your May 11th program, may believe the time has come to acknowledge, A, we are not alone, and that as you once told us, quote, the universe is teeming with life. B, as John Salter taught me, we are viewed by the galactic community as savage aborigines with nuclear weapons, too immature to control the technology we have created, who represent a threat to ourselves and to others. One key question is who is supporting Congressman Schiff as a member of the Democratic Party congressional leadership. I do not, for one, think that he is acting on his own. Someone, perhaps the president, has decided the time has come to lift the curtain officially, a little at a time, in order to gauge public reaction, which we have all been talking about for at least the last 2 or 3 months, or last 2 or 3 years, as this is clearly happening. But the Tuesday 90 minutes is certainly not the way to open it up. Closing in his last paragraph, our world is moving closer to the brink of nuclear war, with impending famine, economic depression that I believe will include currency collapse and loss of legitimacy for political institutions. Hopefully, someone in power in Washington has the wisdom to grasp both the existence and significance for our species' survival of the moral, spiritual struggle that you have been writing and producing about for many years, meaning telling the truth about something as profound, a right for all humanity on planet Earth. We are not alone. Our government has known this since World War II. We have bodies all over the place underground, and we also are working with live entities. So, for that 90 minutes of the public hearing, for the first time in 53 years, to not even have an acknowledgement that there could be extraterrestrials, to not even have an acknowledgement that the current IMSOG group in the Pentagon does not have in their database any information about the shutdown of 10 Minuteman nuclear missiles on March 16th and then March 23rd of 1967. And that shutdown and each of those flights was in 10 seconds approximately, because I talked with a Boeing engineer about it, who said it was impossible what happened. And then to learn from Robert Salas, who was the launch control officer in Oscar, that they were not even told about Echo Flight having 10 of their Minuteman nuclear missiles going down every second on the March 16th. And then 1 week later, he is confronted with what is happening at the Oscar flight, a big red UFO hovering over the outside gate. He's on the phone with a sabotage alert team. They're telling him that this UFO scares them. Would it have made any difference? He thinks so. If he had been told the truth about what happened a week before. And yet, compartmentalization secrecy, the power of information that perpetuates budgets, all of that was at play in what I think was jeopardizing us, jeopardizing our military, jeopardizing our country, all in the name of what? Keeping secret already for more than 80 years since World War II, that there are extraterrestrial biological entities of many, many types that come from many, many different planets. Our government has known that for a long time, and they definitely know that extraterrestrial biological entities have been inhabiting this planet for 270 million years at least, according to the DIA analyst in December of 1999, which makes us the babies on the planet. For babies to learn how to walk and grow up, to be children and then teenagers and then adults, we need education. And that means we need frank and honest, complete exchange of everything about the extraterrestrial civilizations in the Milky Way galaxy, let alone the 3 trillion other galaxies that this universe allegedly has, looking at the Hubble Deep Field estimates. Yes, this universe is teeming with life. And we, Homo sapiens sapien, deserve to know that there are life forms that have been coming here that are definitely not Homo sapiens sapien. But that does not mean they cannot be our allies, that we are not already dealing with friendlies such as the tall whites and the Nordics and grays, and that the ancient tall grays may have been the first to try to help. That it is a complex picture, and if we were all told the truth, then this planet, all of it, might finally be so shocked, so stunned, and for the young people, excited, enthusiastic about learning how to move out into space, that we might stop wars. Reincarnation, the recycling of souls, is the machinery of this universe. All right, Ian, on that note, I'm going to segue to you. And we have a problem with Ian's audio tonight, so I'm going to hold up my old cell phone, and hopefully, Ian, you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Are you hearing me okay, Linda?
I can. Crystal clear.
Okay, Linda, we've had a lot of comments and speculation about the special hearings. People are saying they didn't mention abductions or cattle mutilation,
or
which
any
are also part of the phenomena.
Yeah. No, to me, it was a slap in the face. That's what it was. It was people that would call themselves IMSOG, who were basically saying, unless we say we have it in our database, it doesn't exist.
Yes, I think we're all shocked by what we did hear about the threat. We've got a comment here which says, what about the huge spacecraft that was filmed on video, March 1997, that flew over Phoenix? How come that was not a threat either?
Well, see, the thing about all of this, our government has known and been interacting with beings and getting technology to back engineer since at least the 40s, and they know quite a bit. They really do. You would not know that by that farcical 90 minutes, but they do know quite a bit. And I have reported and played for you excerpts on this Earthfiles of my interview with Lynn Buchanan, who worked in Project Stargate, where they were remote viewing. And it is the program that I did about all of the remote viewers finding in the way they go out and go into time and go into space and all of that, that's that famous quote, the universe is teeming with life. That's where it came from, the remote viewers. And that not only is it teeming with life, there are friendlies, there are neutrals, and there are hostiles. And that sure does seem to apply to today. 3 categories. We're being helped by some, we're being threatened by others, and that there is a very large group that is neutral, not getting involved on any side of anything, but are probably mining from our, let's say, from Ganymede or in the asteroid belt. There's probably a lot of harvesting of valuable material from this solar system by beings who they don't care to be involved with Earth at all. And then there are others, such as the ancient tall grays and all of the minions of the AI and the smaller organic ones, and the reptilians, a huge contingency that claims that it was here first, and tremendous hostility toward anything that wants to have Earth is not them, and the Nordics, and the tall whites, and the teals, and the list goes on and on. And these are the facts that underlie the tension and the confusion about what are the intentions, what are the agendas in this hall of mirrors with a quicksand floor, which is the way it always seems to come down, because when you get complexities of agendas, the ability to manipulate DNA all over planet Earth and use it as a laboratory. And if you get 20 different civilizations involved using this planet, using other planets because they have a kind of perfect balance of things that are liquid and temperatures, those are the laboratory planets, then the vested interests that various extraterrestrial biological entities, to use the government's own phrase, there would be a lot of different interests, and they might not all be the same. And there could be conflict between extraterrestrials, like in that woodcut in Germany in 1556 at Nuremberg. That is a woodcut depicting some kind of conflict going on in the sky between different shaped aerial craft, and it was 1556. All of this is not too complex for us as a human civilization to hear, listen, absorb, learn how we can help. Kids who would be more excited about their lives evolving into Space Force. But instead, we're in straitjackets on Earth with all of these this little group gets to know this, and this little group gets to learn this. But God help us if the world knew the truth. I think it's upside down and backwards. The whole world deserves to know the whole truth, and then maybe we will get stronger, and then maybe we would be able to communicate with those beings that have demonstrated that they would like to help see us evolve. And that one of the sentences that was said to me a long time ago, beings like the tall whites and the Nordics and others, they may have a vested interest in helping some planetary cultures that are new to evolve, because that the entire cosmic universe in its consciousness wants to see an evolution in consciousness. That's what the universe wants. As if the universe is a huge conscious thing, and that famous line that is in the Nag Hammadi, the Nag Hammadi, that talks about the thought that lives, that dwells in the light, and that there are other books and other scientists in this world today that talk about the universe is conscious. And we're still babies, and we don't really understand exactly what that means. but the relationship between your brain, your mind, and your soul, and what this universe is as a conscious being in and of itself, appears to be what a lot of the neutral or friendly non-humans seem to understand. And wouldn't it be wonderful if we were given a chance to understand? That's why I do this work. That's why I have done my books, documentaries. Why, since 43 years ago, when I was confronted with the first stories about animal mutilations, that I wanted to get to the bottom of it. And it has evolved to this night and beyond, and complexities that I could never, ever have imagined in 1979. But I don't find it frightening. I don't find it debilitating. I find it exhilarating to think about what it could be like if we all stopped hating for reasons that are so superficial on the earth, and that we truly could do agape love as beings in this conscious universe. And then these other advanced beings, we might be able to work and travel together in the universe, like a movie, only for real. Okay, Ian.
Linda, I want to give the super chats a mention now, so here we go.
Oh, before you start,
Sure.
Let me say something to somebody I love so much. It makes my heart warm. Hannah is in the chat, and she's spreading hearts. Hannah is my 7-year-old diamond of a grandchild. She is so bright, so beautiful. She's just wonderful, and she comes on nights when she can. And Hannah, I love you. I love you so much. And I'm so glad you're here tonight. Okay, Ian, now. Super chats. Did we lose him?
Can you hear me, Linda?
Yeah,
Here we go.
All right.
Moonbird, Sarah Enriquez,
Hi, you
Jessica
guys.
Rodriguez, Traz, Thomas Lau, Alexander Moore, Lily Boop, Len Beeler, The Odessa Files, Mark T, Dorothy Austin, Kathy Iwanski, Sexy Sadie, Stacey Watkins, and AI Biotech. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, everybody. It all helps. And for those of you who like what I am doing in the Earthfiles YouTube channel, please hit that like button. And for those of you who haven't subscribed, click on that red arrow in the lower right of your screen, I think. And we will keep pushing past to get to 210,000, and we'll just keep growing. And I am thrilled when Ian sends me lists of how many countries, people from different countries. We have had 116 countries. Let's go for more. Let's make this a worldwide, large discussion where everybody who has some kind of information, and your questions as well, I keep trying to answer. Even if I can't read all of the emails, I do keep trying to draw your questions from the emails that you send, and the messages and the texts and the chat, and work them into each Wednesday. So I just encourage you all, if you like the Earthfiles YouTube channel, help me keep growing, because that means something in the Earthfiles YouTube world. Okay, Ian.
Yes, we've had people contacting us again in the chat with their own experiences. We've had Alpha, who says, I want to share my experience, but I cannot bring myself to tell it. I've asked her to contact us at Earthfiles. She says, I've never shared my story with anyone, but I've kept it to myself for over 10 years. When Linda spoke of what happened to her, I freaked out and had to turn the TV off.
Huh. Well, yes, thank you. And for everybody, Ian does a wonderful, wonderful work interfacing on Wednesday nights, and then helping get comments and questions and subjects to me through the week. But you can email me directly at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. That is the same email address that I have had since, I think, 1999. You can email me there. The problem sometimes is time, because I get 400 to 500 a day, and I go through, I'm pretty fast at reading, but I don't always get through everything. And that's one of the advantages of working through the chat and the messages with Ian, because he concentrates on doing that. And that I always encourage people who have illustrations, photographs that have related to something where they've had an experience, to get in touch, and then, so you'll know, we still, I think, are in a country where we should be able to talk on the phone in confidence without any problem. And then I am perfectly happy, and I've done this with military people, where we can do a recorded interview and then alter a voice if people are worried. But isn't it sad? This is truly what depresses me, that I have to feel like people would be hurt and threatened simply to talk about the facts of other life in the universe here. That is still a threatening subject to some people. It's crazy. So I welcome all of you who have something that's really substantial, hopefully with illustrations, military, DD-214. I don't ever use personal information in any way. There's Proton Mail. I hope that it actually is encrypted. I use it. It seems like it works fine. So there are ways to communicate, but my celebration will be when we don't have to feel like there is some reason to be intimidated by government, by military, by other humans, by anyone, because we're simply trying to learn about and report about what is actually in this universe, in this solar system, in our planet. I pray that will move in a positive direction away from intimidation and policies of denial and policies of lies. So let's keep the Earthfiles energy going, spreading as positive as possible, with the idea that we are investigating the real facts and the real truth. Okay, Ian.
Okay, Linda, I've got a couple of questions I'd like to squeeze in as quickly as I can before the end here. They're very good questions. We've had one here from Dr. Nick Rivera, who says, have you guys heard of any of the experiences getting cancer from abductions or close-up encounters? I developed lymphoma cancer from my experience.
I know that the issue has come up in questions. I do not know of any verified medical study outside, and this isn't important. I'm not saying it's cancer, but there is a lot of medical data that connects the terahertz frequency emissions from some UFOs, in which a human body that has a chambered heart, which is hollow, and other chambered organs, gets within 100 feet, I believe, and then it's measured in gradients leading up to the craft. But that exposure to the terahertz frequency is connected to heart damage, heart valve damage, and this has been established by Dr. Kit Green, and I know University Medical Center in Rochester, New York. There have been studies on that part, but I don't know of a definitive relationship between exposure to frequencies coming off of a UFO and cancer. If this person has any hard data, ask them to get it to you, Ian, and then I can see what that is. I went over a little bit tonight just because we got a late start. We couldn't hook up with Ian. It was a strange echo chamber. We don't know what it was, but it cleared up. And let me know if you find it valuable for me to show you documents like we did Psalm 101, and now I'm going to work my way through this Project Aquarius, and I have others, as part of our mix of shows. I would like to know if you find this as valuable as I do, because as far as I know, these are real. This is what our government generated decades ago, in spite of the 90-minute hurried, deflected, and deflecting 90 minutes Tuesday morning from Congress. May they begin to ask more questions. May they expand the investigation so that we finally break through to headlines around the whole planet. We're not alone in this universe. Okay, you guys. I love you. See you next week.
Turn on closed captions for YouTube videos by clicking the white CC button on the lower right. The default language for Linda's videos is English. If you would like to see the captions in another language, click on the white Settings button next to the CC button. Select Subtitles CC, and then select Auto Translate. Select a language, and the captions will now appear in that language.
Sort of gone through, and they will hold their heads. I never had a cat do that before. And they'll pull against the comb, helping me get out snarls. And I think it's the best they've ever been.